Well, welcome to Narrative Church this Sunday. So glad to have each and every one of you. I was just thinking about this morning um, how how we are actually gathered today with thousands of people, maybe millions of people, I don't really know, around the globe celebrating this day, Easter Sunday. So many people gathering around who have experienced the living Christ, who are gathered in their own church communities and celebrating today. So, just thinking about that this morning. So, several months ago, I shared a little bit about learning to drive stick shift. And I was 16 years old, but there's a little more to the story that I wanted to share. So I was 16 and trying to learn to drive. Maybe I was 15, I don't know. But my dad took me out to a country road and to try. So, country road, there's not many people out there, so you don't have to worry about other cars or hitting things. You can stall the car as much as you need to, it's totally fine. And so there we were. And, when you're first learning to drive a stick shift, it's challenging, but I felt like I was starting to get it. Little by little, I was feeling more and more comfortable. My dad had driven us out to the country because, I didn't want to do that. But after some time on the country roads, I was feeling better about that. And so my dad asked me if I wanted to drive back home. And I don't actually remember if he asked me or if he voluntold me that I would be driving home, but there I was driving back home. Now, it turned out that that was one of the days that Washington State University was releasing for spring break. And my hometown is Colfax, Washington, and it's just 15 miles from Pullman. And essentially, for anybody to leave Pullman, they have to come through Colfax. And so on spring break release, there are tons of cars, just hundreds and hundreds of cars driving back to their homes almost anywhere in Washington. You would have to come through Colfax. And so they are driving by. And I needed to take a left turn to get into where my home was. And so there are cars and cars and cars and cars coming by, which means there's only a small gaps where I might be able to make this left turn. And I need to use my new stick shift driving skills to be able to release the clutch at the right time and sneak through one of these gaps. In that moment, the country road didn't matter anymore. This was my rubber meets road moment, that it didn't matter how good I was in the country. It mattered now whether or not I could release that clutch at the right time. It was the moment that really, really mattered. We have been in this series of the 40 Days of Decrease. I know some of you have gotten to go through the devotional each day of the week, and it's been a special time for me. The Lent is designed to prepare you for today, for Easter, to kind of prepare your hearts for this moment. There are many religions that, no, that might not be true. There's at least one religion I know of that doesn't celebrate special days. They don't celebrate birthdays. They don't celebrate Easter. They don't celebrate Christmas because in their minds, you're supposed to be celebrating all those things. You're supposed to be, you don't celebrate Julie's birthday because you're supposed to be celebrating me every day of the week, the fact of my existence every day. And so, anyway, but I when I had heard of that, it just does not resonate with me very well because I love the annual reminder for something special, the annual reminder that we get to celebrate the resurrected Jesus, the annual reminder that we get to celebrate each of our lives, that we were born on our birthdays. And so we have been through this Lenten journey and we have arrived here at Easter. Last Sunday was Palm Sunday, and we celebrated Jesus coming into Jerusalem. There was a mix of both victory and anger. There was a sense of victory that here was Jesus. He was coming in to take his role as Messiah, and also anger where people are recognizing that other people are recognizing something significant about Jesus. And they wanted to hold on to their religious power. They wanted to hold on to what control they had. And so they were becoming increasingly frustrated with Jesus. On Thursday, there's kind of a weird word that we use called Maundy Thursday. A Maundy Thursday is when we celebrate the Last Supper. So Jesus, it's the Passover feast that Jews celebrated every year. They come together and they're celebrating this supper together. So the meal was normal, like the Passover meal was normal. But then when Jesus takes the bread and breaks it and says, "This is going to be my body broken for you," that's when it became abnormal. That's when it became the Last Supper, where he takes the cup, the usual cup that he would usually celebrate with other people, and he says, "This is going to be my blood poured out for you." On Good Friday, we celebrated the Jesus going to the cross. And it's a sobering moment when Jesus, the Messiah, the one who was supposed to become king, who was supposed to resurrect things. I shouldn't use that word, but he was, in some ways, that's true. He was supposed to resurrect things in the governmental power sort of way. That's a great question. Why is it called Good Friday? It's only called good because that's when Jesus died so it was the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus that showed us that Jesus was willing to sacrifice so that all of us could be in relationship with God. And so you're right. It's a very bad day. For everyone there, it was a very bad day. But for us, on the other side of the resurrection, we can call it good. That's a great question, though. I appreciate that. So I just want to remind us, kind of get in the mood of what things were like before Resurrection Day. So we're going to read Matthew chapter 27, verses 27 through 56. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spit on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. So Jesus is allowing himself to be beaten up, to be mocked. People wrote signs saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," to make fun of him because he had been claiming deity through his life. And I loved how Jeff talked about that this is the coronation, that this is the coronation of Jesus as king in Jesus's kind of kingdom. That to be coronated in Jesus's kingdom was to be prepared for sacrifice. Picking up in verse 32, as they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. You might be able to imagine that Jesus has been beaten up. He's not feeling so well. Maybe he's unable to carry his own cross. And so they found someone else to do it. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Crucifixion was a time of humiliation. It was not just a punishment, but it was a public punishment because it needed to be a sign to everybody else too to not follow in the footsteps. You know, if you are a criminal and you murder someone, we are crucifying you to show the rest of the world that this is going to happen to you if you murder. And so in Jesus' case, he was claiming deity. He was claiming to be a king. And so they put this sign on him, and his crucifixion was a warning to everybody around. Don't be like him. Verse 38, then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Jesus continues to not go down a place of violence or of taking on extra power in this situation. People are even taunting him, encouraging him to come down from the cross, to use that miraculous power that he had displayed. He had fed 5,000 people. He had healed people. He had, what's the word for getting demons out of people? He had exorcised demons from people. Thank you. All of you are helping me out. Anyway, he had done all these miraculous things. And now was his chance to do the most miraculous thing of all, take himself down from the cross. And he refuses. Now from the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "This man is calling Elijah." And one of them at once ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So there was an earthquake. There were people being resurrected right at Jesus' death. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." There were also many women there, looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. In the final reading of the 40 Days of Decrease yesterday, Alicia Sholey kind of explored a little bit of what would it have been like? Would it have been like to be there? And so I started thinking about, what would it have been like to be that centurion? A centurion's job was to make sure that the crucifixion went as planned. Make sure that all the crosses are there, make sure the people get on the cross, make sure to like manage the crowd, make sure that nothing happens to the people on the cross so that they actually end up crucified. So this was his job. What would it have been like to see Jesus be humiliated and die? What would it have been like to feel the earth shake and to see Jesus cry out his last? And something about that, maybe it was the earthquake, maybe there was something more. Something made him say, truly, this was the Son of God. I think about what it would have been like to be a priest at the temple. So all of the Gospels want to make sure that all the readers know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they want you to know that the temple curtain was torn in two. So there's different details that some of them leave out, but every single one wanted you to know that. And so there was, within the temple, there was the holy place, and then there was the most holy place. In the holy place, that's where the priests would do the sacrifices. That was where their job typically was. So they're making animal sacrifices. But the most holy place was like extra special. I believe only one priest could go in there once a year. And at least there's this scripture that talks about they would like tie a rope to their foot. And so the priest who went into the most holy place could be taken back out by rope if God like smote him in this most holy place. Because the other people wouldn't also want to go in there. Like only one is allowed. And so, anyway, so I just think about like, was there a priest in the temple doing sacrifices in the holy place? Did he watch the curtain tear in two? Like, what would that have been like? What would that have felt like? I mean, they might have run away because usually you wouldn't want to be anywhere near the most holy place. That was where God's presence was thought to live, and especially in the Temple of Jerusalem, the main city of Judaism. So I just think about these different people on that day. But the one I want to think about the most was Mary Magdalene. This scripture talks about that she was there. So crucifixion was a public event. And so there were lots of people gathered to watch these people naked on the crosses, breathing their last. And Mary Magdalene was one of them. We meet her in Luke chapter 8. We find out, I'll just read it. Soon afterward, he, Jesus, went on through cities and villages, proclaiming and bringing the good news of the kingdom of God. And the 12 were with him, and also some of the women who had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities. Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out, and Joanna, the wife of Chuza, Herod's household manager, and Susanna, and many others who provided for them out of their means. And so Mary Magdalene was one of the followers of Jesus. So she had been exorcised of 7 demons. And that last part, that some of these women were ones that provided for Jesus out of their own means. So they used their own money, their own resources to help fund and feed Jesus and the disciples. So Mary Magdalene had been walking with Jesus. We don't know how often, how long, but I would imagine that if you were exorcised of demons and you were a provider of Jesus, that she spent a lot of time helping, going along with Jesus in his mission. And so I think about her on that day during Holy Week. I think about her. She was probably in Jerusalem. I mean, she was at least by the following Sunday. She may have been in Jerusalem watching Jesus come into Jerusalem on that colt. Perhaps her cloak she put out in front of him. It's not recorded that she was with Jesus during that Passover meal. It just talks about the disciples. Were there other people there? I don't know. It just talks about the disciples. But I started pondering, I mean, like, if she wasn't there and she was part of the people who were providing for them, did she bake the bread? Did she pour the wine into the cup? I don't know. I'm just pondering on it. But maybe. There she was, watching Jesus be humiliated on the cross. She was there when he breathed his last. And then on Saturday, utterly hopeless. If it were me and my whole job had been following Jesus around, providing for him, and then the Messiah, the King, he was supposed to save us all, dead. I would imagine that Saturday being very hopeless. And so we come to Easter morning, and we find Mary Magdalene again. So Jesus's body had been put into a tomb, and so Mary comes to the tomb early in the morning, and she sees that the stone of the tomb was rolled away. And she's assuming that the body has been taken. And so she runs and tells Peter and John and lets them know, and they all come and they see that indeed the tomb is empty. This would be like going to the funeral home and wanting to pay respects to a loved one that had died. And you're expecting to be able to see an open casket, and you expect to see the body of your loved one. So you show up to the funeral home expecting to pay your respects, expect there to be some body in that casket, and there is none. So that's what Mary is thinking here. This is the equivalent for them. So she's found an empty casket. And so she's like, where's the body? So we pick up the story there from John chapter 20, verse 11. But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. So this is right after she realizes the body's gone. So there she is weeping. And as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." It strikes me that she still called him Lord, that maybe there was just a little bit of hope held on, that there was still something special about him to her, even though it looks like all hope is lost. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. I think it's incredible that the resurrected Jesus was speaking to her. Like they had this little conversation where Jesus himself was saying things to her in his own voice, but she didn't recognize him yet. But as soon as he said her name, Mary, that's when she knew. There must have been like a special way that Jesus said her name. And I can only imagine how incredible that would have been to be her in that moment. I think about that Jesus' life story are just words on a page until they matter to us. You know, Jesus, his resurrection didn't really matter until it mattered to her, until Jesus said her name. Jesus' death, just words on a page, a story about a guy who died and was crucified like so many others who were crucified in the Roman rule. Jesus' death matters only when it matters to us. His resurrection are just words on a page until they matter to us. I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was not a faith podcast at all, but it was two guys talking, and they both started talking about how they wished for a faith experience. Like they both expressed, I would really like to have some kind of faith, but it was like they couldn't access it. They wanted to have it, but they hadn't experienced it yet. And so I think about that. Like all these things, his life, his death, his resurrection, don't really matter until they matter to us. My stick shift driving skills did not matter. I should have put new batteries in it, I guess. So anyway, there I was trying to take this left turn. I was even going downhill, and I managed to kill it numerous times. Like it was just like this moment that I needed to take this turn, and like I killed it again. And then there's cars and cars. And usually, I mean, this town is a town of 3,000, so usually it's pretty easy to make a left turn. But in this situation, I just kept killing it over and over and over again. And there are cars stacking up behind me, and I can see them in my rearview mirror. My dad is getting anxious. He's trying to be patient, right? But he knows like how annoying of a driver I am in this moment. All the cars stacking up behind me, they're wondering like, what the heck is this person doing? Trying to take this left turn. It was a rubber meets road moment when my stick shift skills actually had to matter. Mary had her left turn moment. She had spent all that time with Jesus, but it didn't matter. Even his words didn't quite matter till he said her name. We need a faith that matters, that actually matters when the rubber hits the road. When we are so sad, we can't stop crying. When we are so mad, we can't stop yelling. When we are so depressed, we can't imagine a better life. When we are so anxious, we can't access calm. We have to have a faith where it matters for us in those moments. You can call Nate back. So Easter is a time where we can celebrate our resurrection moments. Maybe there's at least one moment, if not several, where Jesus has already impacted your life in a significant way, in ways that he has called your name. Yeah, I was texting with one of you this week. I didn't ask you for permission, so I won't say who it was. But they were saying how, like, they had experienced this great healing, but it had been so long ago that it was like almost they forgot about it because it had become so normal to be healed. And so this Easter, we can celebrate those moments in our lives where Jesus has had a resurrection moment with us. But then we can also invite Jesus into those untouched corners of our lives where we still need Jesus to say our name in those moments. So as we do our last worship song, I want you to consider, maybe remember and celebrate those moments where Jesus has brought that resurrected healing into your life. But also invite him in to those untouched areas where the rubber meets the road moments haven't quite connected yet. I have those things in my life still. There's so many of things in my life that have been redeemed, but there's still like things that hang on to me that feel like they're never-ending things that I'm going to be healed from. But today I want to invite Jesus to say my name in those moments too. So let's sing together and celebrate and invite Jesus into those areas.